Hello, thank you for joining with me. We are reading A Course in Miracles, Workbook for Students, Lesson 254. Let every voice but God's be still in me. Perfect lesson for this day. Father, today I would but hear your voice. In deepest silence I would come to you, to hear your voice and to receive your word. I have no prayer but this. I come to you to ask you for the truth, and truth is but your will, which I would share with you today. Today, we let no ego thoughts direct our words or actions. When such thoughts occur, we quietly step back and look at them, and then we let them go. Footnote 59. This sentence provides instruction for response to temptation. Whenever we notice an ego thought directing our words or actions today, we should step back and look at it, then let it go by repeating, "Every voice but God's be still in me." We do not want what they would bring with them, and so we do not choose to keep them. They are silent now, and in the stillness, hallowed by His love, God speaks to us and tells us of our will. Footnote 60. That God tells us of our will means that He tells us what we really want. So God speaks to us and tells us of our will as we have chosen to remember Him. And I will go ahead and read Alan Watson's commentary. First I'll read Robert Perry's practice comments. And this is perfect. Not only is this a lesson for 9/11, and it's also the lesson for my mother's death anniversary. Practice comments. The prayer for this lesson is simply beautiful. It is one of those prayers which, as in lesson 221, announces an intention to come in mental silence before God, asking to experience only the truth. I suggest praying it many times as a way of entering into that state of quiet meditation. Notice the response to temptation instructions in paragraph 2. Throughout the day, whenever you notice an ego thought, and again, this Irma will be with us in Jacksonville through this, for this lesson, so it's a perfect opportunity to practice. Further lessons, further training in forgiveness. I have opportunities all throughout my day. So notice the response to temptation. Throughout the day, whenever you notice an ego thought, quietly step back and look at it. And that includes like separation of my mom, or, it brings up all of that. So, or any fear thoughts, any fear-based thoughts. Then let it go by declaring, every voice but God's be still in me. And if it's not of love, it's not of God's. You don't want the effects of this thought, and so you choose to let it go. With thoughts like this out of the way, you can then enter into silence where God speaks to you and tells you what you really want. Commentary. Silence. Inner silence as well as outer silence is something most of us are not used to. When I lived in New Jersey, one of the things I used to notice when I visited a rural area was the silence. I can completely relate to that, having lived in New York for many years. Particularly in the morning around dawn. I was not aware of how continual the noise was where I lived until it was absent. Trucks passing on a nearby highway, dogs barking, televisions playing, boom boxes, sirens. even the constant hum of air conditioning or refrigerators. I was used to having a TV or radio or stereo playing most of the time. Even more difficult to tune out is the constant inner chatter of the mind. Absolutely. The Course is constantly engaging us in the practice of silence. In deepest silence, I would come to you. Mental silence is an acquired habit. It takes a great deal of practice, at least in my experience. Even when I meditate, my inclination is to use some words, perhaps to repeat a thought from the lesson, or to invent some kind of mental instruction for myself, such as breathing in love and breathing out forgiveness. My mind wants to engage in a running commentary on my silent meditation. Lately, however, I have found myself beginning with a simple instruction to myself such as, now let me be silent, or peace to my mind, let all my thoughts be still, and then just sitting for 15 minutes or so, attempting to be completely still and silent. In silence, the lesson says, we can hear God's voice and receive His word. If I seldom seem to receive anything concrete, the odds are that it is because my attempts at silence are not terribly successful, but I am practicing. And I think today I'll make the meditation a silent meditation, which of course we could always turn it down too. Turn down the volume and it would be silent. But I'm going to make it a silent meditation today. In silence, we can hear God's voice and receive His word. If I seldom seem to receive anything concrete, it's because my attempts at silence are not successful, but I am practicing. I know I read that a second time. So there's some specific instructions that seem to me to apply to the question, what do I do with the thoughts that arise while I'm meditating? The instructions are quite simple. Step back and look at them and then let them go. In mentally stepping back from my thoughts, I am holding my awareness still in the silence. I am watching the thoughts rather than engaging with them. This practice of disengaging ourselves from our egos is a key practice. The thoughts arise. Rather than identifying with them and playing with them, I step back. Rather than fighting against them and resisting them, I simply step back. I recognize that I do not want what they would bring with them, and so I choose not to keep them. They are silent now. When you simply disengage from the thoughts, not condemning them or approving them, simply noting them as of no consequence, as something unwanted at the moment, they really do begin to fall silent. I discover that I am really in charge of my own mind, and who else would be? As the thoughts fall away, in the stillness hallowed by His love, God speaks to us and tells us of our will, as we have chosen to remember Him. One final note, as we begin to learn this practice of silence, it starts to spill over into our lives during the day. We discover that we are able, in the throes of some disturbing situation, to step back from the reactive thoughts of our minds, note the reactions, and simply choose, with His help, to let them go. The place of silence we have found in our special times of quiet comes with us into our day. This quiet center in which you do nothing will remain with you, giving you rest in the midst of every busy doing on which you are sent. And if you'll please close your eyes, I will lead you into the meditation for today. Let every voice but God's be still in me. Father, today I would but hear your voice. In deepest silence I would come to you, to hear your voice and to receive your word. I have no prayer but this. I come to you to ask you for the truth. And truth is but your will, which I would share with you today. Thank you so much for joining with me in that meditation. We will now read Part 4, What is Sin? Paragraph 2, sentences 4 through 7. And now the body serves a different aim for striving. What it seeks for now is chosen by the aim the mind has taken as a replacement for the goal of self-deception. Truth can be its aim as well as lies. The senses will then seek the witnesses to what is true. All right, and now let's read the commentary by Alan Watson. When we have changed the goal of our striving and set a new purpose for our body with its senses, it begins to serve a different aim. The aim now is holiness rather than sin, forgiveness rather than guilt. Our minds were trying through the body and the senses to deceive themselves. Our minds were trying to make their illusions of separation real. Now our aim is to rediscover the truth. When our mind selects a new goal, the body follows. The body serves the mind and not vice versa. It always does what the mind directs. It always does what the mind directs, so when we consciously select a new goal, the body begins to serve that goal. The senses, then, will seek instead for witnesses to what is true. Simply put, we will start to see things differently. The text explains in some detail how this works. We begin to look for our brother's loving thoughts instead of their sins. We are seeking to learn of their reality, which is the Christ, instead of trying to discover their guilt. We look past their egos, their variable perception of themselves, and past their offenses. We ask the Holy Spirit to help us to see their reality, and He shows it to us. When you want only love, you will see nothing else. What we see depends on what we choose in our minds to look for. Choose love, and the body will become the instrument of a new perception. Let us all choose love today. I love you. Thank you.